afraid to kiss, but Nina never knew.
Okay, I don't know how this will play out, but it should be interesting. So,
But Nina
I
never
thought for
knew.
this week we could talk about even just discuss what is innovation,
Sweet
like that.
surprise
It's more
filled
of a
Nina's
buzzword that's
eyes.
thrown around on technology and attached to technology, like, and an innovation is it. So, could I get what you guys first think about it? Then we'll talk about what is innovations related to culture or its relationship to a specific culture.
Hmm. I think for me, innovation is more of um, something to do with how we can manage to go through our lives, like more related to culture instead of technology. I mean, you could look at it from the technological point of view, but I think that it should begin with culture first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think, Ram?
Um, I don't really know what innovation means besides sort of the common intuition we all have about what it is. But I think there's sort of I think the more important for me what's more important is that I think that there's a misconception that innovation is like someone thinking, what can I do to be innovative? Um,
Yeah.
and that sounds silly, but that's actually what happens, for example, in our school, right? We have a whole bunch of tools and really smart people, and then they ask the question, what are innovative things that I can do with these things that we have? That strategy is not a good strategy to be innovative. In my opinion, you sort of have to be immersed in something, and then realize what needs to be done. You have to like have good control of the tools and processes of your domain, and then realize what else you can be do with it. So to me, like I think people should just forget about being innovative. It's really not an issue.
Mm-hmm. New, like I pull up the. I know you don't like doing the definitions anymore. I guess like the definition of innovative would just be new methods or new ideas, but I don't think that's what the word entitles now. I mean, yeah,
I mean, sure,
but
it can be about that. Like that's again, this is a non-controversial definition, right? Like the question
mm,
isn't like what is innovation is like it's really in the practice of like because a lot of people claim that what they're doing is innovative, and then you look at it and you say, well, no, that it is new, but it's not innovative. It's just like Cheppy says, new
yeah.
is not innovative, right? So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
what does it's not so much I'm not really so concerned about the definition of what is innovative because there will always be someone who will define what they do in some ways as innovative and they will be able to justify it, but it's really not innovation is not for me something that you can really plan for. It's
Yeah,
something that comes out of the work of you just being passionate about a particular piece of work and then finding something in it that hasn't been done before. And in that case something that is new is means something. Do you see the difference?
So,
I like that. Yeah, yeah.
so does innovation has to always start from a problem, or do you think it could start just from anywhere, like without having a problem at the first place anyway? That like you
Mm,
just want to innovate,
mm-hmm.
and where is it supposed to go? Like if you innovate, is there like certain criteria that sort of become a measuring stick, whether that's a good innovation or a bad innovation? What is the measuring stick of innovation?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, like
Something,
if it accomplishes something,
I
moving
guess.
forward, but like, is that really?
There's a lot of things is like, I sometimes I see like people just calling it innovation, and it's just in a utilitarian way, like what you call it. It's just a matter of like function and utility,
Yeah.
but it's nothing more, beyond that,
Mhm.
which is kind of, I don't know. which is kind of disturbing to me.
Mm-hmm. I guess like the reason I was like interested in this topic or just thought about it for a podcast is it's like innovation's like relationship to design as we are designers, like, you know, from the from the other side of it of like non-designers, like, oh, this new innovative like phone or, you know, grill for your sandwiches, innovate, I don't know, you know what I mean, like what, but on our side of the bench, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
This design always innovate, like, you know, I don't really get the word in a way, so, but it seems like it's so much importance on it, I guess, or like you'd say that iPhones are always innovative and phones, and so does something, I guess what you're measuring doesn't have to be, if it's going to be good, like a good design doesn't have to be innovative in a way.
Yeah, I don't know
if this is a good topic to talk about or not.
No, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So, Josh, you know, you were asking if innovation is a good topic to speak about, and I do think it's a great issue, and I think it's I think it's a great topic to talk about because it's a non-issue. You know, we're in a field that was kind of kludged together from a bunch of different areas, and that there's this desire of like, let's create something new and innovative, right? And a lot of the particular designs that we have been particularly immersed in, like you, myself, and Irene, have been really influenced by this idea of slow design and slowing down and going back to basics and understanding how design works from the bottom up and so the whole idea of being innovative was kind of like, learn how to do this properly first and then think about being innovative.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of taking a very hard line in this topic and saying that innovation should not really be an issue. That it's something like it's certainly something very noble to strive for, but we are now starting to develop not expertise, but we're starting to develop you know, much more knowledge from these different parts that we learned in design and knowing how to bring them together, and then starting to see what it means to put them together in innovative ways. But that's only after having studied for a long time and having failed for so many times. That now, after having done like a bunch of research, that we sort of understand where are the key criterias of what's missing and where can we provide actually solutions, not just random solutions that kind of follow trends, and those get called innovative. And that's why, to me, like, a priori, just thinking about being innovative once you enter into something is kind of like a noble but misguided attempt. You really should just be just like, you know, Japanese designers or Italian designers, and just have this kind of slow movement where you just, you know, you don't worry about being innovative. You just worry about being, you know, culturally connected and making good things. Maybe you start off not really doing anything that's purely innovative, and then once you build up a certain momentum and you're somewhere richly into the field, then you can start to say, well, what is my contribution to here that is really new and different and can really push the boundaries forward? Because as Giulio Ceppi says, new is not innovative. That's all I'm saying.
I gotta re-listen to the Ceppi interview. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah.
That it's that last step. I guess my question would be then, like, is that something designers should strive for in the end result? Like something good, like it's that moral thing, but you said it's like not an issue at the moment. So
I mean, look, as a designer, I don't believe in right and wrong. I believe in strategy. So I can't say that it's wrong to want to be innovative. Of course not, right? It's very, like I said, it's very noble, right? But it's not a question of should you strive for being innovative or not. I'm just saying, as a strategy, you will become innovative once you really richly understand what it is that you are doing. And that, for example, is something that is not done in our school, right? There's no real understanding, there's no real comprehension of what it is that's happening. There's a bunch of cool toys and they try to kind of put them together and then call that innovation. Same thing with the North American market, the designer market. There's sort of like the no one really understands what the potential of ubiquitous computing can potentially be. They just have iPods and iPads, and then they're trying to be innovative in that sense. And really, the only people who are doing innovative things with iPads and iPods are very deeply embedded into it. It's not kind of like the guy who knows how to program a little bit and then thinks, I can make a quick app just to make a bunch of quick money, right? I can't really wrap up the whole field in one broad stroke, but
Sorry, you're cutting out there, right?
yeah, sorry, I was just saying that I can't really wrap the whole field in one broad stroke to say that, what is everybody doing? But I think the concern, I'm not really sure, like, why were you interested in this question in the first place?
Okay, I guess I'd say like my whole interest in this topic led from kind of, I guess, observing, life in our culture in North America, and it's like almost obsession with innovative things, or things need to be innovative, and where does that put myself in creating or hopes for creating these things? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. I was just questioning it and bringing it up, and like, what is it exactly that makes certain things that way, and is it even something that should be strived for or shouldn't? Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Sorry, say it again, Josh.
I guess it's like a kind of difference between North American design ideals and like a European, like Italy or Germany's design ideals. So
Yeah.
like the let's see, the Dumbo mug done by Richard that Richard guy.
Is it?
Yeah, Richard Hutton. Like, that's not like, it's a nice mug. Like, I like it. I like using it. It's actually great. But I wouldn't, like, if you brought that to our kind of like day, like, North America, the West Coast, Pacific West Coast, it wouldn't be called like good design in a way, or innovative product that should be wanted. But I think it's good design, but it's not. You know what I mean? I guess it's again going back to that, like, North America versus European design cultures, and where we stand in amongst of this like technological jerk circle. I don't know.
I think in North America, it's because it's mostly centered in utility and function.
Yeah.
So there's really nothing else that they consider besides adding function or adding utility to a product. Well, in Europe, I think it's the other way around. Like, function doesn't really come first. I mean, it needs to work, but the narrative or the poetry will come first before that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in a way, like, in Europe, they're sort of like they are very humanist kind of culture. So they really pay attention to being humanist, like what kind of experience and narrative is embedded in an object. Supposed to here, like, everybody's like in a hurry, everything needs to be fast, everything needs to be efficient. So all the product is geared towards that. Like, that's the main what do you call it, direction to producing something. It's to make everything more efficient, faster, or do more things.
Yeah. I don't know what to add on that. I like that, though.
I mean, look, I'm gonna, over the last couple of times that we've been doing these podcasts, like, the thing is, I want to play a little bit of a devil's advocate here, because I think everything that Irene is saying is correct. There's a sort of tradition in these established design centers like Italy and Japan, for example, where they're very, the poetry and passion of a product is, comes just as equal as the function, if not before. But
Mhm.
there is a lot of interesting things that are happening in the North American market. I don't want to kind of just talk about. I don't want to talk just about, the dumb consumer, and targeting kind of design for the dumb consumer of North America, because that's sort of, it's very easy to just kind of pick on that and dismiss it.
Yeah.
But like as an example, Josh, you had asked before, does innovation have to be like technological in design, right?
Mhm.
And I'm gonna say that I'm actually going to say that yes, that it does. That and it's not, and by that I don't just mean, so technology does happen right now to be focused on function, right? But I think something very, very interesting is developing from that really needs to be given some credits. That is not just purely functional. And by technological, like, does technology in design, does innovation have to be technology in design? When I say yes, I don't just mean like the hardware. I don't mean just electronics, or that's not what I mean by technology, right? I don't mean like software or hardware. I don't even mean like particular implementations. I mean that the most interesting innovations, or that there is a technological kind of formalism, that there's a way of thinking about, like, what does it mean for a machine to, like, speak to me, or be human, or be able to make art, or all those kinds of things. And those are happening in research centers in North America. Maybe not in the market, but I think that kind of what I call technological formalism is really important. And like, to me, that the most interesting thing for me about that is about the computer age is not technology itself. What's most interesting to me is that it has generated a new kind of thinking. I think I call this thinking like high definition or digital thinking. So I just want to unpack this notion about high definition or digital thinking a little bit. Traditionally, if you worked in a trade such as, say, you were a calligrapher in Japan, you generally studied under a master, and they didn't even allow you to touch the brush for the first several weeks or months. You would have to dress up in a kind of ceremonial garb, and maybe sit down and just watch the master work for months. And then finally, when the master was gracious enough to grant you the opportunity to finally pick up the brush and dip the ink in and put strokes down on the paper, there was no real breakdown of the process, other than they watched you move your hand around the canvas, and then they would chastise you if you did something wrong, and then you would have to start kind of the process over until you got the imitation correct. This is something that I kind of call an analog process, right? Now, if you think about with the invention of the modern press, when you had to break down a typeface in order to have a machine do it, you had to sort of deconstruct what writing does, or how writing goes, or what happens, and that's everything from the typeface itself being broken down into all the different components of what typography contains, the baseline and the midline and the heights and the serifs and all those things, and even just the machine. So there was this kind of this deconstruction of this very natural process, and this continues on until today. Now that we've had computers, we've had to kind of deconstruct the whole writing process in order for a machine to do it. And now we're sort of entering into a stage where dynamic typography is coming along, which means that we have to teach machines how they themselves can do writing, either digitally or actually literally, physically. There's a machine that's, there's projects, for example, shown on creativeapplications.net where there's a robotic arm that's itself copying, it's basically doing calligraphy. So in order to have the machine reproduce that, you have to yourself understand what was the process that happened in the first place, that this natural apprentice and master were just doing by intuition. Now this is neither good nor bad. It's a process and a strategy that we've adopted, and some implementations of it are great, and some implementations of it are not so great. And this is basically, we are in a position where we're criticizing some of the approaches that have not quite yielded very, a rich culture in that they've kind of abandoned the cultural aspect and just became so focused on the machine itself. And there's a back and forth dynamic where we're now returning again to, well, no, I don't just make a fancy machine, I make a machine or a product that really contributes back to culture and society and is really attracted to it. So we see lots of examples of this high definition versus low definition in a lot of different fields. As an example, I can say that one of my favorite architectural groups, Diller, Scofidio, and Renfro, they made a mist building at some point where, and their whole objective was like, this is an architecture that doesn't have any particular function or definition. It doesn't even have borders. It doesn't even have walls. It's completely analog in that sense, and that's what they meant by a low definition building, right? A lo-fi design. And a high definition building would, of course, something be the opposite of that, but it's not just simply condos or your house. High definition itself can itself have a lot of richness, but they were themselves very critical of high definition in order to bring it back to question what's going on. And although I agree with them, I mean, that's why they're one of my favorites, I'm here sort of defending the opposite of that, like the potential to they were exhaling, and I'm in the inhaling process again, where let's see what richness can come about when we use high definition process. And I, in particular, in my research, I have to make machines do creative work, and so I have to deconstruct these natural processes about how culture behaves and how it works in order to make machines do it. And this is very similar to the way you say take a natural audio wave, a sound wave, and you deconstruct it with numbers in order to create a digital representation of something that's actually very natural. And I'm extrapolating that process to just culture in general, the way that we have to kind of analyze culture and perhaps break it down into particular components in order to kind of reconstruct parts of it and to digitize it. And that's kind of a dangerous process in some ways, because we're seeing a lot of bad products come out of it right now. However, there is a lot of interest, again, that's being regained in this notion of high definition that is not so distancing, and that is very culturally rich. What's really interesting here is that innovation is a struggle, not before the fact, but after the fact. So what do I mean by that? So we're talking about right now about like us struggling as designers to be innovative. My issue is that actually we've already, once you actually reach an innovative solution and you have it in your hands and you're giving it out to people and it's changing people's lives, that's when the actual difficulty starts, because then you're like, you don't know what the consequences of that is. You don't know what the consequences of what you're dealing with. So for me, computers are that. Are they innovative? Absolutely. But I think the real issue now is that now that we have computers, there's a whole bunch of questions about, well, what do we really do with them? Yeah. And how do we make the machines more human? That's really where the struggle starts. And that's kind of also what interests me about research in architecture and at design centers at the university and in different research centers around in North America. I think this kind of return back and forth, like there's this kind of breathing of like, okay, now that we've had computers for a while, right, and they're pretty sophisticated, there's a return to the question of like how can we make them more human, and it's starting to research again what are the different possibilities. I know for in architecture, for example, Ultra Studio that we that we went and interviewed are definitely focused on this question as opposed to just making innovative technologically advanced buildings with computers. So I think I don't want to make a silly argument of dismissing kind of like the consumerist culture of North America, which I think we're all against. But there is, I want to give some credit to the technological innovations that are happening in North American centers. That's it.
Mm-hmm. I think I do agree that, research is definitely pointing that way. Like, there's a lot of research, like what you said about, what role of technology is in our lives. And people are, sort of like trying to figure out what is technology to us, like where does it fit? But I think in terms of like market wise, like whether you can sell this ideas or not, that is still not happening yet. Like people doesn't buy, it doesn't really sell. Like people doesn't want to buy something that is like an artwork that's made out of technology. There might be a lot of exhibition and stuff like that for art and technology, but in terms of product, it's not there yet.
I want a robot to tell me what to do.
Yes, I'm so glad
Yeah.
that Nina never knew.
Yeah, that's
till
something to think about. Thanks. That's